Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is July 16th. I am back from my family leave, so very excited to have never left my house for all these months now, thanks to what's going on in the world. I hope everyone out there is staying healthy and safe. And let's jump into our agenda. So our agenda is pretty standard. We got latest updates on SharePoint Framework, patterns and practices, updates from the various efforts, some new community samples, and then we got 3 demos today from Pieter, Siddharth, and Luis. Very excited to see those later in the call. So let's jump in so we have plenty of time for the demos. First things first, opportunities to participate in the patterns and practices program all up, as well as more client-side development-focused things. First and foremost, we really encourage you to do demos. If you would like to do a demo, please reach out to myself or Vesa. We'll get you scheduled on a call. And it might not be the immediately next call, as we've said. We sometimes are booked out for 1 or 2 months even. But we will absolutely get you booked. We'd love to have the demos. I think the community demos are one of the most valuable parts of these calls. So those demos could be anything SPFx related, web parts, application customizers, etc. Anything at PnP related, so anything involving any of the libraries or offerings we have out of the PnP program. And then as well, obviously, any combination of PnP stuff with SharePoint Framework or client-side development. Certainly encourage you to reach out to us. We'd love to get any and all of you scheduled for demos, so please don't be shy. We know you're all working on very cool and exciting stuff for your customers and your companies, so would love to demo that on the call as possible. Of course, you can always contribute on GitHub. That involves reporting issues, submitting pull requests, and then as well helping others with their issues and questions are all great ways to contribute. In all of our projects in the patterns and practices organization, absolutely encourage you to report issues and submit pull requests. Those pull requests could be fixing a bug, adding some new functionality, something like that. We encourage anybody interested to please join in. Those pull requests are always welcome and always appreciated, big or small. I know for PnP JS, and I know a lot of the other repositories we've gotten recently, a bunch of documentation updates, which at times can feel small. It's just fixing a couple of typos, something like that. But each little update helps improve things for everybody. So even what might be considered a small update has big impact across the program and across all the eyes looking at those documents. It makes everything a little bit better for everybody. And then finally, always encourage you to give us feedback. How are the calls? How's our documentation? Where can we help? Constructive feedback across all those areas really helps us improve what we're doing for the community and helps the community grow. And of course, positive feedback is okay too. So if you like something we're doing, please do let us know, and then we can, maybe do a little bit more of that. Finally, if you are interested in helping, you want to get involved, you want to make a pull request, but maybe perhaps you're not familiar with GitHub or you're not sure exactly how to get started, there is a great program being run called Sharing is Caring, aka ms/sharing-is-caring. Check out that link, hosted by David Warner. That's a great series to really kind of help you just get started, right? Stand up first GitHub pull requests, things like that. And excited to see folks, attend those sessions and create their first pull request. So great stuff from David and that series of programs there. When I left, we had 4 of these. Now there's 5. So let's see what's going on here. Our first link there, aka MS Developer Videos. So that's our YouTube Developer Videos channel. I'm guessing, since that's a new thing from the slide that I didn't notice before. So maybe Vesa will correct me if I'm wrong, but that's our YouTube developer-specific video channels for Microsoft 365. So I encourage you to check that out. And then as well, our standard YouTube channel, which is going to be all of our call recordings, all of our series on provisioning and things like that. And it's not just SharePoint Framework related. It's things about PowerShell, CSOM, provisioning, all sorts of topics there, as well as all the call recordings are available on YouTube, usually about 24 hours after the call. We have a whole set of GitHub organizations. If you're interested in getting involved, contributing, as we mentioned before, in the open source world, github.com/SharePoint/PnP, Office Dev, and Microsoft Graph. 3 of those, minus PnP, are the official Microsoft repositories for various technologies. They're sort of self-explanatory there. And then as well, the PnP one is our Patterns and Practices community-driven open source organization that houses the Patterns and Practices offerings. So all of those repositories, I encourage you to check them out. There's a lot of great content there, a lot of great opportunities to submit pull requests or participate or report issues. So excited to see all of those growing and getting more enthusiasm and more participation behind them. So certainly encourage you, if you're, for example, very interested in SharePoint or very interested in Microsoft Graph, those are great places to get involved. Sample galleries, we have a bunch of sample galleries for web parts, extensions, list formatting, and then Teams-related samples. The Teams one I know is growing a lot recently. Excited to see that. And that's going to continue to grow with the rollout of capabilities that are coming over the short and medium term. So excited to see all those capabilities and samples growing. And then finally, open source initiatives and samples. That's kind of a link to the main landing index page, AKMS M365 PnP. Will get you to all of these things, kind of a landing pad for all of the stuff I just talked about. And then as well, we've stuck another link down there at the bottom to get to the SharePoint Framework specific documentation if you're looking to get started with SharePoint Framework for the first time, or you've been using SharePoint Framework and just have a couple of questions about how certain things might work. Check out AKMS SPFx. So easy to remember, and that'll get you to the SharePoint Framework documentation. All right. Guidance. So this is what I mentioned before. So this is how to get started on the open source and community work. This is the Sharing is Caring initiative. First time contributor session, July 24th and 27th, and then community docs sessions, July 31st and August 3rd. Encourage you to register today. AKMS Sharing is Caring. So check that out. Registration, of course, is free. And then those sessions will help you get involved and contribute and see what that process is all about, essentially getting you ready to do your first pull request. So encourage you, if you're interested and not maybe 100% sure on how to get started, to go ahead and sign up for one or more of these sessions. Check it out and look forward to merging your first pull request. So I encourage you to do that. And now we're on to SharePoint Framework updates from Vesa.
Excellent. So this is just to show the growth on SharePoint Framework side. This is, and this time this is actually the tenant, so we can actually see a nice curve on growth. Those the latest small white drop is there is a data glitch, and the slightly longer curve is actually holiday season in the January. But we can actually see nicely the growth being pretty steady. We're now expecting the July to be slightly slow, and then the growth continues again in August as we're moving along with SharePoint Framework. And we are announcing SharePoint Framework 1.11. Now, it's not yet available, just to be super clear. If everything goes well, I was kind of spilling the beans just before this call in the pre-discussion. We will release 1.11 today if everything goes as planned. We're not aware of any blockers right now, so it's a matter of upcoming hours. So we're talking about hours, potentially days if there's any last-minute findings, and we need to delay this one. But 1.11 is going out. The really cool thing about 1.11 is that we've been working with multiple partners on making sure that SharePoint Framework is available in the store as well. So these are the 5 partners we've been using as the guinea pig candidates, so to say, and we've been partnering with them and with their solutions so that they are ready to go. That our validation process and SharePoint Framework Store is available for everybody else across the world. Just calling out what's available in 1.11. So we will enable the SharePoint Framework in store, so in the App Source and in the Classic Store. So using the Classic UX, we do apologize that the UX itself, if you're using SharePoint and add an add-in or an SPFx solution, it is still the Classic one. So there's no changes on that one, but you can, of course, access SharePoint Framework solutions also from App Source, which is a really cool thing. And we, by the way, also support SharePoint Framework solutions for Microsoft Teams through this channel as well, which is really, really cool. And we'll get more that experience better and better over time as well. Now, In 1.11, we also have test module support, so you can actually implement test module UX layer using SharePoint Framework. You still need to have the bot behind of the scenes, which is taking the actions from the text module. And then there's metadata updates for manifests for auto generation. And that's one of the main reasons why for every single solution which is targeted for SharePoint, targeted the store, will have to be using 1.11. So you'll get all of the needed metadata in for the store side. And we're building, obviously, there's a lot of other stuff coming in the future as well. I'm not going to talk about that one at this point. So I think that's it from my side as a quick summary. Patrick?
All right, so quick updates across the PnP offerings. PnP JS client-side libraries. We pushed back the release of 2.07. I had gotten back from family leave. The issues list had kind of grown a bit while I was out. No worries there. I didn't put it on the slide, but I do want to thank Julie and Andrew for kind of watching over things as I was out. They did a great job. Very much appreciate their efforts there. But we did push back the release to July 24th. That'll be next week. But we're going to get as many of the issues closed out as we can for that release. And then the August release is not pushed back. So I think that leaves it a week or 2 weeks after the July 24th date. And so the stuff we don't get to for July 24th hopefully will be in the August one, and we'll be all caught up. But this is going to include an MSAL client. So updating from the ADL client, you'll have the option of the MSAL client, new authentication documentation to help try and guide you through that process, and then resolving as many of the issues as we can get through in the list. So we've been trying to chug along on that. And of course, we'll have the changelog updated for all of that. Getting started with PnP JS V2 video series, understanding extension methods has been released. So very much encourage you to check that out. We've got more of those videos coming as well. That's great work, again, from David Warner. So very much appreciated there. I'm back from family leave, as mentioned. So we're pushing ahead, full steam. We've got everybody kind of working along. And of course, I've gotten a lot of great help from first-time contributors submitting stuff, pull requests. So very much appreciate that as well. And then I did want to make a note. We get kind of a lot of feedback from folks, and we always appreciate the feedback, but I would encourage you to please submit that feedback to the issues list. It's hard sometimes across all the different channels, Twitter, Teams, so forth, and keep naming stuff, to keep track of all that and to not miss stuff, right? So we don't want to miss your issue. We don't want to miss your question. But so please do use the issues list so that we don't miss it and we can make sure everything gets resolved as it comes in, right? We don't want to miss your questions or issues, certainly. So please use the issues list. Finally, documentation there, pnp.github.io/pnpjs, and you can follow at m365pnpjs on Twitter as well for all updates around the library. Office 365 CLI, so a new beta version v2.12 with renaming SharePoint Framework projects, creating tenant app catalogs, retrieving site users, removing site users, and getting Microsoft Graph schema extensions. So excited to see that work continue, and a lot of great community participation for the CLI. A great community participation for everything, but I've seen a big uptick in the CLI and excited to see that. Really great stuff. And now I think this was announced while I was, well, I know it was announced while I was out, but maybe a couple of weeks ago, but this is now in the Azure Cloud Shell. So the Office 365 CLI is available in the Azure Cloud Shell, which is a very cool capability added in there, and just another tool in your toolbox of ways to solve problems for your companies and customers. You can always install the latest beta version from NPM with npm install-g at pnp/office365-CLI at next. We'll get you that beta version. So definitely check that out, and certainly encourage folks to try things out. And have you tried out SPFx Doctor yet? If not, let us know, and let us know what that does for you. Next updates on the reusable components. So no big updates on this call of what's been offered there, but do want to always mention these components are created and available for you to use. So we encourage you to use one or both sets of these controls. The first set is the React controls, and those are a set of controls designed for the body of your web part or your application customizer, and that will allow you to use great format styled with the Office UI Fabric controls. So use that right. use those capabilities immediately in your projects without having to write them or create them yourself. Save yourself a lot of time and effort and get a great out-of-the-box experience with those. The second set of controls are the property controls. Those are really designed to be used in the edit pane of your SharePoint Framework web parts. And again, nice out-of-the-box styled experience, and gives you a lot of great controls for doing things like searching, UI spinners, file pickers, UI messages, things like that. So I encourage you to check those out as well. Great list of contributors there. I'm not going to read all those folks, but thank you to everybody that's contributed both on these, the CLI, and all the rest of the things. So more information on the links. I'm being told to hurry up. So Twitter handle there at M365PnP Controls. Community Yeoman Generator, no big updates again on the generator, but this is going to be updated with the new release of SPFx. So Angular 9 support is coming, as well as some other great updates there. If you want to help out, certainly encourage you to help out. npm install-g at PMP Generator SPFx. And I do note the irony of being told to hurry up by Vesa, of all people. So PMP Modern Search, great solution here. Again, ready to roll out web parts for your solutions, which will give you a great modern search experience. With the current version, 3x is available, but we are not currently trying to add new features to that, only bug fixes, just a heads up there. So encourage you to check out aka.ms/pnp-search and check out those web parts. Really help you build out a great modern search experience for your websites. And now the SPFx samples, which I believe Hugo is going to talk to.
Wonderful, thank you. So for the last 2 weeks, we've had a lot of contributions, and I wanted to thank everyone for helping with creating samples. We have an update to the announcements application customizer by Siddharth. He's fixed some minor issues and added a code tour. And I've updated the chart web part. If you haven't tried it, it's got 18 different web parts, including the Chartinator, which is like an updated version of the quick chart, but supports every chart type. We have an updated Kanban board that Pieter Paul Kirchner updated for us because he rewrote it from scratch because he wanted to make it IE11 compatible. We have a new date range picker by Ravi, and it's actually a sample from his blog that he submitted. Harsha updated the React list form to add support for required fields and upgraded it to SPFx 110. I've updated the dynamic data web part from Waldeck, so Waldeck gets all the credit. I just upgraded to SPFx 110. And we have a new modern organization chart by Joao. It shows the organization chart in a modern way, and it shows the status. So if you have to stalk your bus to see when they're available, you can use that web part. The web part customizer or workbench customizer has been updated by Joel, and he says he's made it simpler. I'm using air quotes here. The React My Group by Zach Roberts now has the new grid layout, which looks awesome. And Eric Benke, hopefully I said your name right, has added the new accordion section FAQ builder, which is actually a full version of an accordion control. Usually they're not accessible, so this is a great example. We have a new sample from Nandeep and Ravi, which is the React timeline, which shows events in a visual fashion. It looks great. And we got 3 more. The image gallery has been updated by Pieter Paul Kirchner again to solve an issue with the WebSocket driver and upgraded it to SPFx 110. A new telephone directory web part by Dipen Shah that shows people in phone directory. And finally, Pieter again, Pieter Paul Kirchner updated the calendar feed web part. It allows you to show events from RSS, iCals, SharePoint, Exchange, WordPress, and Pieter made it IE11 compatible. Thank you everyone for all your contributions. This is looking great. We keep on having to make the font smaller and smaller. I hope that we'll have to move to 2 slides soon. Back to you, Patrick.
All right, and so we're on to the demos. So Pieter, if you are ready, we've got creating a Minesweeper game in React with SPFx, a productivity solution if I've ever heard of one.
All right, so let's get started. I'll share my screen. My name is Pieter Heemeryck. I'm from Belgium, and I work at Delaware as a technical consultant. And the reason I'm here is I've added the classic game of Minesweeper into the PnP Samples repository as an SPFx web part, which I created with Fluent UI. So my apologies in advance because it might be the first counterproductive web part that's in there. So as a kid, I know I used to love playing Minesweeper and all those other games on XP, Windows XP, like Solitaire. So I was looking for a challenge a couple of weeks ago, and I know and love Minesweeper, and I thought I know and I love SPFx, so why not combine it? And so this is the result of that. And also, I think that every framework that takes itself, quote unquote, very seriously needs its very own Minesweeper version, of course. So this is what it looks like in Microsoft Teams. I've been busy the last 2 weeks as well because I've added a high score table to it. I'll show you the details how it's created and how it can be used. And then after showing the demo, I'll also go through the code a bit. Not everything, of course, but I also want to show you the code tour I've made because Hugo Bernier showed it like 4 weeks ago in a previous call, and it's quite easy and nice to set it up for newcomers into your code to get to know your code. So first up, the demo. I'll show you in Teams. If I go to the channel here, as you can see, I have a Minesweeper tab here. And so it loads the high scores. And so the first thing we can do is just start playing the game, of course. I can click until I hit a mine or until I finish the game with a new high score, perhaps. All right, what else can we do? We can also start flagging stuff, right? So if I do a right click, then flag. Now I've switched out the Fluent UI icon with a Delaware icon for the occasion, but you get the picture. Now, what else can we do? If we can also do chording. Actually, I didn't know what it was. I don't even have the Dutch word for it, but if I had to translate it literally, it would be like making a chain. If I have the equal amount of flags surrounding a number, for instance, I have one flag here and this is the number 1, then according to me, if I set the flag correctly, I am able to just uncover all the surrounding tiles. So let's just do that. As you can see, I've made a mistake, and then it also shows the mistake I've made. Let me just quickly reset the game. I've also added a bit of support for mobile. This entail, it's just you can switch between mine mode and flag mode. So if I just keep left clicking, you can see I just uncovered tiles. If I click this one, I can immediately set a flag with my left click. Why is this so important? Well, on mobile, if you want to do a right click or set a flag and you're just in mine mode, then you need to do a long press. So if you want to get those high scores on mobile, it's easy to switch to flag mode, right? So, all right, I've showed you all of those things. Of course, there's the several difficulty settings like the intermediate and the all gigantic expert mode with 99 flags, bombs, of course. All right, and then the high score, how does this work? It's actually automatically provisioned using quite simple SharePoint API REST calls to the backend. And what we do is we just create a hidden SharePoint list, right? So that's a secret between us, of course. You can go to the hidden SharePoint list and edit your high scores, but let's not do that, folks. As you can see, I have quite a decent score, I think, at least for the beginner. But there's quite a few strong colleagues that know how to play Minesweeper. And actually, Robin managed to just sneak past me just yesterday, I think. All right. So also, if you manage to get a high score, you automatically add your high score to the list, of course. And you can sort, of course. So I think that's it for the demo. Now, let's head over to the code. I hope this is big enough because Hugo mentioned it. I should zoom in. All right, I'm going to open the tour file first. So actually, it's pretty easy to get started with Code Tour. It's just an extension that you would get from the Visual Studio extensions store. And I've added a lot of steps, as you can see. So, but the cool thing is you can add commands to it, and if you just click on it, it's automatically executed for you. So I just clicked on gulp serve, and then it will automatically do that for me. So quite easy for newcomers to get started with your web part. So it serves the workbench for me, and I can add my web part, right? All right, so let's see what else. I'm not gonna show all of the steps because I'm just gonna skip to step 11. Okay, so what else can you do? You can reference other steps in the code tour extension. So here I have the beginning of my game logic region, and these are actually all the relevant methods inside my game logic region. So for instance, yeah, how to initialize the grid, what happens if you discover a tile, plant a flag, and so on. I've explained chording already. Let's go ahead and click to the traverse empty tiles method. What does this do? This is actually quite interesting recursive method that just handles the event when you click on a mine or on a tile, I mean, that is has no surrounding mines, right? So we have delta coordinates, and for each delta coordinate, we're going to check what is there, right? The delta coordinates are just the 8 surrounding tiles, right? The next thing we do is we check if the field type, we do a simple check on the field type, and then we get the surrounding mines. Now, if there are no surrounding mines, then of course we want to traverse all the other empty tiles, and we just call this method again, but with our delta coordinates. And this keeps on going until we hit like a border, and the border is a number, of course, that says, okay, now from now on there's so many mines close to me, and this is also how the method knows it should stop, right? Okay. I'm gonna really quickly show how the code is structured. So actually it's quite neatly structured with regions. So the initialization of your state and constants. Then we have the render section, the events, the game logic, which I showed you already a part of, and then some helpers. The initialization and the render is nothing special, but maybe I could show you some events. So as you can imagine, we have a regular click, then a right click, and then several other things you can do, like reset the grid or select a new difficulty or toggle the mode between mine and flag. Now, what I wanted to show you is that I've separated the logic from the click logic. So the game logic, when you do a left click, it enters here, and it first checks if we should do chording, right? Because then it just immediately skips to chording. Whenever, if you do a left or a right click, it always does that. Now, but depending on the mode we are in, we're gonna either plant a flag or do the discover of an unknown tile, of course. So, and then there's several, pretty self-explanatory methods in there. Let me wrap this up real quick. So I've showed you the code. Let's head back to the slides. First of all, to wrap this up, I want you guys to let me know if you like the web part, because I'm very curious to see how it will be used, where it will be used. You can reach me on email or via Twitter. Also, I want to mention that I am one of those first-time contributors, and I must say that there are some pretty handy guidelines on the PnP sample repository on GitHub, and it was overall a quite fun experience for me to do it. So I want to wrap this up by saying thank you for having me, and have a good day.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Very cool demo, just showing a lot of different techniques there. Certainly appreciate that. And welcome to being a contributor. Appreciate you and all the other folks that have just started out contributing recently. And it's really exciting to see that continue to grow and grow and grow. So now I think, Siddharth, if you're ready to go, you can go ahead and take over the presentation.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right. I see your screen. Take it away.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. Today I will be talking about an SPFx web part to display current logged in user teams and sending the message to the channel. A little bit about myself. I am Siddharth. I'm working as a technical consultant. I'm primarily focusing on SharePoint, Office 365, SharePoint, and .NET. You can connect with me on any of the social media platforms here. Today's repo is also available in the SPFx web part sample gallery at this particular URL. Moving ahead. The driving factor is like, as we all know, any organization, maybe small or big, who has adopted M365 would definitely be having their own intranet, right? And the landing page of the intranet would be more like wherein the organization's content moderators or administrator can push the content to the employees. But there are trends nowadays wherein we also need to display some personalized content according to the current logged in users, right? Wherein we have seen in the lookbooks where we have the samples available to display my sites, like my quick links or say my recent documents. So on the similar ground, I thought of having a web part which can display the current logged in users Microsoft Teams, right? So features of this web part would be the current logged in users, the teams would be displayed in a tree view, and we would have option to show or hide the teams or the channels description. Once the user expands the team, the channels would be displayed within the team, and also it will allow us to send the message to that particular team's channel. Okay, so this was the driving factor and the features, and now moving on to the demo. Let me just quickly go to the demo. So this is the web part, which will basically load the current users teams. So if you see here, these are the teams which are been displayed here. On clicking of the node, it will basically expand and display the teams, and on click of any of the teams, we will get the message. We will get a window wherein we can display the message. So if I say hey there, the message will be posted to that particular team's channel. Let us quickly see where the message has been posted. So this was the team's message where I have posted. So if you see, this is the current time, the Indian Standard Time, where the message has been posted, right? So other thing is this web part is configurable, wherein we can configure the web part title. This was one of the change which I made after I have contributed, wherein one of the community member has kind of provided a feedback saying that it would be nice to have a web part title which would be displayed the out of the box way. We do have option to show the description of the channel and the teams, which we can show and hide. This is not reactive in nature. The reason behind is the tree view control which we are using from the PnP needs the labels to be loaded by default. So if you are enabling this, we need to reload the page so that the description will be displayed, which I can show you in some time. And there is an option to open the pop-up by selecting channel. So we can either on or off this, whether we want the channel to be either selectable or directly open the send message channel pop-up, right? So if I load this now, you can see the team description is also loaded. So basically the sub labels which we are seeing here is the team's labels, and it also has the context menu, wherein you can directly open the channel within the team, which will basically open the Teams channel in Microsoft Teams or in the browser, wherever it is, wherever you want it. And then you can also expand the other teams and the channels would be loaded. So this web part is kind of simple web part, but can be used at the intranet homepage, as I said, wherein as the team adoption has been kind of on the peak and people are using it for their solutioning for the companies and organizations nowadays, this can be used in the intranet homepage also, right? Coming to the implementation part, what we have is a simple SPFx web part, wherein we are using graph endpoints, Microsoft Teams graph endpoints to get the data for Microsoft Teams. Then let me start with the render method. So in the render method, we have the controls which are being used from PnP reusable controls, PnP library. One of them is web part title to make the web part title configurable. Then there is a tree view control. I mean, this control is something which I was really excited to use in the sample. This was being developed by Nandeep and me and was contributed to the PnP React control library. So it's always great to make use of the control which you have developed and practically use it in your web parts. So this is a tree view control which basically takes the data in a particular format, and then there are configurable options to display the children's parents and everything. And then there is a dialog message which will open the text box, which will allow us to open the text box, and user can put the message and send the message to the teams, right? So coming to the endpoint web service, I have a service provider.ts file. One thing I wanted to note here is I started with using PnP JS, which is definitely the way it should be. But due to the fact when I developed it, and I'm not sure if Patrick is here, he can correct me if wrong. But as of now, we don't have support for sending the message in the PnP JS library. We do have methods available wherein we can get the current logged in users teams and the channels within the team. But this is something which was not available at that point of time. And that is why I went with MS Graph Client Factory to basically get the data from the graph endpoints and then using it in my way. So as I said, 3 points are being used here. First one is to get my teams, which is basically me/join teams, which will give the current logged in user teams. And the second endpoint is to get the channels for that particular team, wherein we have to pass the team ID. This would be basically passed dynamically as soon as the user clicks on the expand button of the particular team. And then the endpoint is /channels. And now within a channel, we have to send a message. So the endpoint which is there is basically teams. Then we have to pass the team ID and the channels and the channel ID. So depending on the user option where he has selected particular channel, the pop-up would open, the channel ID would pass here, and the message would be posted onto the teams. So so this is about the endpoints which are being used. And to make the tree view kind of thing, the response which we are getting from the graph endpoint is different from what the tree view is expecting. So I do have some methods which basically reads the responses from the graph endpoints and convert into the format in which the tree view requires, right? So this is that's it from my side. Thank you. And if I have any questions, I can basically put it in the message window. Thanks, Patrick. Over to you.
No, thank you very much. Another great demo. Really appreciate that. Cool to see that technique. You do have a couple of questions there in the chat that you can follow up on. And Luis, if you are ready to go with our demo, thank you, Siddharth.
Thanks, Patrick.
Hi, everyone.
Take it away.
Cool, thanks. So yeah, well, before having a look to the sample, just super quick presentation using the new and cool GitHub profile. So my name is Luis Mañez. I work as a chief architect for Clear People, and I'm an Office Dev MVP. So you can see there my social network. So just feel free to pin me if you have any questions. So let's jump into the sample. The samples have been already merged and is available into the GitHub repo. So we have a React Outlook Add to Do task sample on there. And well, it's documented on how you can install and use it and so on. So yes, feel free to take a look. And well, let's see it actually in action. So if we go to the Outlook, this is an SPFx deploy as an Outlook add-in. And the idea is that we're going to create different tasks in the to-do app from an email. And well, as you likely know, a couple of months ago in latest build, Microsoft released the preview of the to-do endpoint. So you can create tasks and so on in the to-do app. And when I'm saying the to-do app is this one, not related with Planner or Outlook task. This is the to-do. So there's an API, there's an endpoint now in the Graph API, so we can create lists and tasks from here using the Graph API. So the thing is that when using Outlook, maybe you know that there's a flag functionality and there's an integration. There's already an integration between Outlook and the to-do application. But if we flag an email, at some point it's gonna end up into this list flag email. It's gonna take maybe 1 or 2 minutes, but after, yeah, you can see here. So it's creating a tag in the flag email list, and with some info like the title from the subject and so on. So that's cool, but I thought it'd be a good idea maybe if you can select the list that you want to use for creating the task, or maybe even update the title before creating the task. So what I did is I created an SPFx web part deployed as an Outlook add-in. So here you can see there's a to-do PnP. The add-in is getting the different lists that I have in my to-do app. So there's a to read later, community, task, and flag email. So as you can see here in this email, I have a bunch of different links that I have to review. So let's send it to the to read later list, and then I can change the title. In this case, I'm getting the title from the subject on the email. So let's create a task. The task has been created. We can link here to open the to-do app that is already open. And let's do another test. So in this email, it's going to do the same. But in this case, we're going to use a different list. Let's say the community one. And let's gonna update the title and create a task. And now if we go to the to-do app at some point, let's refresh, because as I said, it takes 1 or 2 minutes maybe. But it's, yeah, you can see there's the new task creating using the subject from the email as title, and the one that we send to the community. So from Outlook directly we can select the list and we can edit the title if we want. So before diving into the source code, let's take a look to the different actions that we can do in the to-do endpoint. Because actually this is still in preview. It was from latest build, so it's not very well documented yet, to be honest. So let's take a quick look. We have a to-do endpoint here. So if we call the list in the to-do endpoint, if my access token is still valid, and it is, yeah. So we are getting the list of the different lists that we have in the to-do application: the flag emails, task, community, and to read later. And to get the task of a specific list, you have to call the same to-do endpoint list and specifying the ID of the list, and then the task actions. So if we send this, we are getting this list was the read later, so we have just a couple of tasks, as you can see here. And if we want to create a task in a specific list, then we need to do a post request to this specific list ID and the task action. And in the body, we need to specify some JSON. I'm using these fields. There are much more that you can specify, and the ones are documented. So as you can see here, this is the preview documentation from the graph, and there's a to-do task in preview. But most of the links are actually redirecting to the Outlook, because I guess they are sharing some resources. So in order to create a task, actually it's the same object that when you create an Outlook task. So I'm setting some JSON, and if you post it, you're gonna create one in the list. It's created and should be there. So this is how the endpoint works, and this is basically the different codes that I'm doing in the web part. So if we jump into the source code, not in Visual Studio, sorry. There's an SPFx create as web part, and in the init I'm getting the graph client from the graph client factory, because the graph client is the one that you need to call graph. So when we get the client, we resolve the promise, and in the render method we are calling the getContext function, and this function is the one that is checking if we are in Outlook or not, because obviously this is an SPFx web part, so it's going to work in SharePoint, and we can see it later. But if we are in Outlook, we can get the message entity from the context. So I'm getting the mailbox item, and then I can get some properties like the ID, the subject, the from and to email addresses, and some other information. We can also get the body of the email. So here you can do quite interesting things. So for instance, instead of creating the task just using the subject, maybe you can call the Azure Cognitive Services and extract different tags from the body of the email, and you can use the tags later for creating the task and things like that. So you can do quite interesting things on here. In this case, I'm just getting the subject of the email. And then we are sending that custom create task context to a create task React component. So if we take a quick look to the create task React component, basically initially we are setting the title of the task from the context. And if we have the subject from the email, we set it to that value. Otherwise, we just set a default value. And then we have the get to do list method. So we are calling the lists action in the to do endpoint to get the different lists in the dropdown. So I can select the list where I want to create the task. And then we have well, some render code. There's nothing interesting on here. And there's another method that is the one that we create the task when we already selected the list that we want to use, and we have the title from the email subject or because we updated it. And then we just do a post request using the list ID that is coming from the dropdown. And then we are setting the JSON body as we just saw in Postman, sending the request, and then the task is created. As I said, as an SPFx web part, this can also obviously work in a SharePoint page, so you can see it here in action. Obviously, we don't have an email here, so the title is just a constant, so we can say PnP here. And the task is created, so it works also in SharePoint and obviously in Teams if you deploy it. About the deployment, by the way, as this is an Outlook add-in, there's a couple of extra things. There's great documentation from Microsoft explaining how you can do it, but just in summary, what you need to do is first you need to deploy the SP package to the app catalog, as with any other SPFx solution, tenant deployment, and then later you need to edit a file that is here in this Office add-in. So this is the XML, the manifest for the Outlook add-in, and here you need to update some values. You have to replace some tokens, for instance, the component ID with your web part ID and some others. Is really well documented in Microsoft, but just to take a quick look. And once you have the XML, you just need to go back to Outlook. And you can go here, you can say get add-ins, and you can go, here is my add-in already deployed, but you can say here add a custom add-in from file. You can select your XML file, and then it's already deployed and available. So when you select an email, you have available the option from your add-in on here. So this is basically how you can deploy it as an Outlook add-in. So I think that's all from my side. Feel free to leave any question on the chat and download the sample and whatever. That's all from my side.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that great demo on tasks. And so while we're opening the PowerPoint deck there, in relation to chat windows, just want to remind folks that this particular call is certainly not the place to expect custom solutions or custom kind of consulting about your particular situation. So just to kind of set expectations, while we're here to help, we try and answer some questions as we can. This call isn't necessarily the place to be seeking your kind of custom engagement discussions. Everybody comes here. Everybody is welcome. So did want to say thank you to all of you for joining the call. Fantastic demos today from everybody. And the recording will be available in 24 hours on YouTube. So you can always follow us on Twitter. 2 things there. Our next SPFx call is in 2 weeks on July 30th. Can't believe it's already July 30th in 2 weeks. And then our next general development special interest group call will be next Thursday, July 23rd. As well, we've got the August monthly community call for SharePoint on August 11th. So once again, just want to say thank you to everybody. Here's a whole set of links. Thank you to all our presenters today, and appreciate everybody's time and effort. And we've got about 6 minutes left. If people want to drop some questions in the chat, we can do our best to answer them for about 6 minutes.
There's a good question from Sebastian related on SPFx move to Office UI Fabric React 7, and answer is no, unfortunately not yet. So that was not yet possible, related on the updates on the platform.
Yes, you were right. We don't necessarily have that support yet, but absolutely open to adding it. So we accept pull requests to update features we don't yet have in Graph. I know our Graph coverage is certainly not complete, is the word I guess is right there. But of course, the Graph SDK remains a fantastic option as well. They have a slightly different model, but they have 100% coverage, which we don't. So certainly encourage, that is a great option as well. So they're all tools in the tool belt. Recordings of the call will be available about 24 hours after this call on our YouTube channel. MSAL on PnP JS, that is going to come out. That's part of the next release. So that's going to be July 24th. Release is going to have that in, and that MSAL support is browser only right now. We're not going to have support for MSAL on Node with that release because the MSAL Node package is still in alpha, and I'm not quite ready to take that dependency. I'm going to let that settle down a little bit and stabilize, and then we will get the Node support for MSAL in just as soon as we can. But MSAL for the browser will come with the next release. So we'll get that out, and that's our first pass at it. So, of course, open to and welcome any and all feedback around that experience and how we might improve on that. So with that, I don't see any other questions. So I want to thank everybody again for joining the call. Appreciate it. See you on future calls. Everybody have a great weekend, and we will talk soon. Thank you. Bye.